Raw and Smackdown had a relatively solid start to the year, but now we're into the second week and things need to start amping up for the Royal Rumble. Braun Strowman tried to kill a few people, while Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn tried to get from underneath the thumb of Shane McMahon. All sounds like a good and fun amount of stuff happening, but did Raw and Smackdown this week prove to be better than last week's counterparts? It's time to find out on this week's edition of Wrestling Rant. Raw kicked off this week with a surprisingly solid Roman Reigns promo. I know, is the world collapsing in on itself? Well, since the Shield reunion, Roman Reigns' mic work has stepped up, and it's pretty damn good. So anyone who wants to complain that he can't speak on the mic really shouldn't have anywhere to stand after that. And then, of course, Jason Jordan came out and did his, now quite fantastic for me, arrogant cocksure attitude, which is making me feel happy because at least he hasn't got a white meat babyface attitude that does legitimately nothing for him. So that's all good. Seth Rollins rubbed the salt into the wound, and overall, I thought that was where the promo was going to end. It was a little cringy, repetitive of last week. I was ready to give it a strike, despite Roman Reigns' best output that he's done for quite a while. And then in comes the Balor Club, which made it ever more better, as Finn Balor himself seemed a lot more confident on the mic in his own regard. Followed up, of course, with that ridiculous, begins with N thing. Good lord, I think everybody was a bit unsure what the hell Gallows and Anderson were going to do there. That was really treading the line. But the fact is, this segment did exactly what it needed to do. It built up Balor Club as an imminent threat, it highlighted Jason Jordan even more so as an absolute arse who needs to get his head checked, and of course, as I've mentioned, it was a solid and very good night for Roman Reigns on the mic. The segment showcased intensity and the fighting morals of the IC champion, while building up the dissension in the tag team ranks, while giving the Balor Club a platform to say, look, we're not going to sit around and do nothing like the club did before, we're going to make sure things happen. And overall, it was a very good segment. Started off the night hot, we got a massive match announcement for later. It all came through pretty well. Now usually after this, I don't normally talk about the TV segments, the little adverts that pop up for the Mixed Match Challenge and whatever, but something really irked me. The Royal Rumble theme song was announced, and WWE, I know you have to go down the PG route for your song choices, and usually I don't care. I mean, I got into my music taste through your programming for the rock and heavy metal and nu metal that you've had over the last decade and a half or so. Problem is, though, why the hell are you sticking Little Mix as the theme song for a Big Four show? I mean, as a Brit, I know who Little Mix are, and they are shit, to put it bluntly. So to have them, and Stormzy to be exact, as the theme song, I thought Demi Lovato was the lowest you could go in terms of pop songs for pay-per-view themes. This is the new bottom of the barrel, because at least Demi Lovato's Keep Cool for the Summer actually was a damn fine song, and it got into my head faster than an earwig. The fact is, this is a little bit of an overstep of the mark, and I do not like this at all. Thank God you have a second theme song with Bialo Black that does a hell of a lot better at proving to be interesting for the pay-per-view theme songs. I didn't want to talk about this, but the fact is, I didn't expect Little Mix, a really rubbish pop girl group, to be the theme song for a Royal Rumble pay-per-view in 2018. It's frankly insane, and if I could have given this a strike, I bloody well would. But as it isn't part of this week's scheduled programming, and I have to be reminded of it for weeks on end, I might as well get it out of the way now before it starts irritating you that I haven't brought attention to it. We then followed up with a women's tag team match, with Bayley and Sasha Banks taking on Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose of Absolution. Now this match, I have to admit, was there with a good purpose, to show that Rose and Deville were competent, and they've been on Raw for a couple of weeks now, but this is my first seeing of them in the ring. Mandy Rose was the arrogant and extremely full of herself yet inexperienced worker, just trying to say, hey, I'm tough and I can do this, and it wasn't that impressive, whilst Deville, I could watch her any day of the bloody week. She reminds me of a more technically sound Victoria, which is actually no disservice to Victoria because she was amazing in the ring outside of her character work, so I'll give her credit there. It wasn't the greatest match in the world, and the crowd were indifferent until Sasha came in, and overall, the win for the faces just came out of the blue. On top of that, you also have the fact that Bayley was aggressive and in your face. Apparently, we were told that she couldn't do this, so I don't know, are we that forgetful? Lord knows. The fact is, this match just didn't really do anything for me, and I would have preferred to have more stakes on the line, because we know the Royal Rumble women's match is happening, and these women are in it, yet at the same time, there's no real buzz in between. We're just waiting for the match to happen, and all of these little matches in between on Raw isn't really helping. So the fact is, there wasn't a purpose for this, it didn't really do anything to help either team, and as a result, I would have preferred qualifying matches, so I'm going to give it the first strike of the evening. On top of that, I'm not one to judge appearances, but Paige, red lipstick does not suit you. I mean, I can't compliment anyone on appearances, just look at the state of me. The fact is, black worked better. I know what works with some of these things, and yeah, it just doesn't work at all. It's nothing particularly serious, but it's just an observation that I wanted to make note of. We then had a Goldust and Cedric Alexander promo that, under anyone else's knowledge, would have obviously flopped, because the type of imitation from the Rocky films that Goldust was doing would not have worked if it wasn't for the passionate delivery that Dustin Rhodes gave to it. It was cringy, and Cedric Alexander tried to distance himself away from it, but it was entertaining enough, all because of Goldust. I would have given this a strike if he wasn't involved in it. So that shows you how good a seasoned pro is at making a pretty bad segment into a solid one simply because of how much they bring to it. All's well and good. We then follow up with Woken Matt Hardy versus Curt Hawkins. Now, this was a squash match, a short but sweet one, to showcase the more physical side of Matt Hardy's in-ring offense, which it did, while also highlighting that, well, Hawkins hasn't won in about 160 matches now, which is frankly absurd. And he won, obviously, which is great, with Hardy coming out with his brand new entrance, which got a massive pop, even though he doesn't have the custom Tron stuff, which they'll get to. It's just a placeholder for now. And honestly, they're playing the laugh to death. It's a meme, but I just love hearing it. It's hilarious still, and as long as it doesn't get tiring, I think I'll be okay with it. After the match, which obviously would have probably gotten a strike because it doesn't really serve much of a purpose, Wyatt and Hardy laugh maniacally at each other. It's bloody creepy, but also hilariously awesome, so you guys are doing okay, just tiptoeing us to the eventual massive clash, hopefully at WrestleMania, and you're getting there ever so slowly, and I love the way you're just getting things out and teasing it all properly. All is well and good in this one as we approach the second hour. And that hour kicked off with The Miz returning to the fold from his time filming the Marine 6. And I obviously would give the Elias song beforehand a strike as always, but as The Miz came straight after it, I can let it slide because The Miz will make just about anything better the moment he opens his freaking mouth. And he did so, proving to deliver a white-hot, serious, down, put-through promo that really made you stand up and go, oh god, this guy is serious. He may have some jokes around him as an entourage, but when Miz is on fire, he bloody means it. And it's incredibly entertaining because his promos do not feel scripted. They feel like they are coming from the heart and pull from the gut to ensure they work as in-ring segments. And it was really fun. Now, sure, the Bo Dallas Curtis Axel ass-kissing was extremely cringy, but that wouldn't take away from the glory that was Miz's mic return. And I'm telling you, if he doesn't win a world title this year, I'm going to be very stunned, because with mic work that hot, you need to put a massive title on it. Then again, for the moment, he's going to go after the IC belt and make Roman Reigns' life a living hell. That'll be interesting. I'd love to see how that goes. And that should be good. Then we had a Balor Club backstage segment which highlighted their history, and it was to the point and on point, especially as they were dropping the names of OG Bullet Club members such as Tama Tonga and Bad Luck Fale, who of course are potentially under contract issues with New Japan. Now this is apparently because their contracts are about to expire and they're going to WWE from what the news sites are telling us. So, are they doing this just simply to try and grease the wheels of the marks that we all are? Or are they actually teasing that these guys could come and run roughshod as the OG Bullet Club reforms in WWE? Lord knows, but that would be quite awesome, while also building up the intensity of the group ever so slowly, going from jovial funsies into something much more, well, I would hopefully say barbaric, given how Gallows and Anderson entered in the last year or so. Then again, anything is possible, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they do, because the group isn't going to go all guns blazing to start with. They're going to try and build it up slowly over the course of the next few months, and then bang, they're going to make a massive impact, and it's going to be great. We then followed up with Enzo Amore defending the Cruiserweight Championship against Cedric Alexander, the match that was postponed from last week. Now, this was a solid match overall that highlighted Enzo's ever-improving in-ring ability and Cedric's intensity and high-flying moveset. Now, I have to admit, you would say, wait a minute, Enzo with improving in-ring work? What kind of bullshit is this? Well, Enzo's in-ring style may look basic, but compared to what we've seen from Enzo before, it's a lot more refined, and I guess sticking him on 205 Live with competent and very good wrestlers in the Cruiserweight division, it showed that he had to up his game a little. And he has to a degree. He's more solid, he doesn't look as erratic, and it really works. And we also got blood off a springboard enziguri, showing, well, just how bloody insane Cedric Alexander is, that he managed to not only bust open the champion and make him bleed hard, but he also busted his ankle to inevitably show that, yeah, and so you may have thought you would have gotten away with it, but I'm not letting you leave this time without feeling the pain, which is, for a smiling guy like Cedric Alexander, something I'd like to see more of. Sure, we got the count-out victory given the circumstance, but it shows that Enzo is very in-ring aware and knows how to play the game, which is fantastic. I'm really liking that heel roll works good for him. On top of that though, WWE, wipe away the blood. The match was pretty good and made even more exciting because Enzo showed colour. Don't wipe it away because it means that these fights are actually looking more intense than they are. You need that toughness to be showcased. So why the hell are you actually causing problems for yourself? Lord knows. We then got a segment of Enzo and Maya Jax backstage in the medical room, and I was fine watching Enzo go to the back, hobbling on his ankle, blood being wiped away from his face. He looked like he'd been through a war despite the fact he hadn't been. It was alright. The shot was of a champion, a wily champion at that, getting out of a certain beating with a title still around his waist somehow. And they went to this and just kind of lost that impact. Overall, I feel that this segment was not needed at all, and it was just ridiculous, especially considering Enzo was able to move his leg ridiculously well without wincing in pain. It just removed all sense of legitimacy and realism from it, and it just wasn't needed. So I'm going to give the second strike of the night to this. It's though sometimes you need to add extra bits to make the narrative flow and run, but for me, this didn't add anything, and it serves as a completely pointless addition into a story that really didn't need extra padding. And seeing as this night wasn't full of even more backstage segments, we get tons in a row here, as we have The Bar, Kurt Angle and The Miz all going through backstage at once. Now, Angle showed his authority fantastically by highlighting the irritation and arrogance of The Bar into something positive. We would hope. And The Miz got his chance and his rematch at the IC title without even having to go out there and do something drastic, meaning that Kurt Angle is the first GM in a while who's making the faces and the heels happy at the same time, which is something you don't normally see from a GM, so I'll give Kurt Angle plaudits of playing the tweener lines superbly while remaining insanely popular as a babyface. This is the kind of GM I want, and I hope to see more of it going forward. We then had a very, very small segment between Alexa Bliss and Asuka. It stirred the pot of antagonism between the two of them, and it sets up a Jax versus Asuka match in the rumours of what's been said and whatnot. Now, overall, that was fine. I would have given this a strike if I hadn't realised that, okay, this is setting up a feud, it's making one feud a little bit bigger, because Asuka versus Bliss is a big one that's probably going to happen at Elimination Chamber. We all know it's coming, and logically, it's being done for a good reason, so I can't give this a strike despite how short and needless this was anyway, so gotta do what I gotta do on that front. And speaking of The Bar, they were given a match against Titus Worldwide. They wanted competition, and they got this. I know, it doesn't make any sense in the light, and the match was pretty standard. It was a bit flat. The Bar were seemingly going to squash them, and Titus Worldwide won. That is the one thing that is saving this match from a strike, because I didn't see it coming, and it got a massive pop. And it gave legitimacy to Titus and Apollo against a team going into a tag title match at the Royal Rumble. I mean, if you want to throw a surprise out of nowhere, go ahead and do so. This is fun. And again, like I said, this would have been going to Strike Country. We would have lost the review totally there. But this is pretty solid. Can't go wrong with that. As the third hour now heads to us, and hopefully we won't lose a lot of traction like many weeks have done before. Instead of the main event this week, we had Lesnar and Heyman doing their in-ring promo right here on the third hour cusp. Logically. Now there was a standard Heyman promo, but they're starting to feel a little stale. The comparisons in marketing kind of broke the illusion of kayfabe to a degree because it's kind of funny but also surprisingly true. The fact is, I would have given this a strike because it just felt similar to last week. But then we had Kane running in and brawling backstage, resulting in the Braun Strowman destruction with the scaffold and the boxes and the tables and the like. And I could watch Braun Strowman being an absolute murdering badass every single bloody other week. Because if we had it every week, it would lose its appeal. But I love seeing Strowman just cause so much damage, because this is what a massive monster should bloody do. You remember back to the time of Big Show in 2003-4, where he quite legitimately would do just about anything to you to get his point across. Chokeslamming Kurt Angle off the parking complex. I remember that like it was bloody yesterday. And it's that kind of destruction that makes a big man so terrifying to a viewer like myself. It's needed. And it was quite fantastic. I loved this segment just after it was starting to annoy me, and they really energized this feud going into the Rumble triple threat, because I wasn't really interested after last week's segment. This one, however, I am intrigued, because anything that makes Brock Lesnar leave on an ambulance in a stretcher, that is going to make me intrigued in every sense of the word. We then followed up with Samoa Joe versus Rhino to obviously show Heath Slater what toughness looks like following last week. Continuity, people! And it was a solid match between two very physical wrestlers. It was short and proved a point that Joe is deadly, and that Rhino is getting on a bit. Logically, Joe's mic work afterwards, very nice and very good as it always is, announcing his inclusion for the Rumble. However, we've heard afterwards that he's injured, legitimately. Whether it's storyline or not, that's very disappointing, because I really want to see Samoa Joe in the Rumble. Because if the injury is legit, holy crap, that's depressing. Because it's ruining Raw by taking away one of the best parts on it, and on top of that, you also have something of wondering, where in the blue hell in that match did he become injured? Because it was mentioned on the reports he was injured in that match. Where? Because it looked bloody seamless. I kind of want to see it again to find out where, but overall the match did its job, Samoa Joe looked amazing, and I can't really say much more than that. As I said before, backstage segments seem to be the theme of today, as Alexa Bliss and Maya Jax further their perpetual tension by drawing out the idea that Nia Jax has been insulted by Asuka, and that Enzo is holding Jax back. Ooh, you sassy bitch, Alexa, I love it. And on top of that, well, it was a solid segment that was drawn out a little too long for its own good. If it wasn't so important and imperative to what's about to happen and the storyline at large, I would have given this a strike. Along with the fact that Jax saying Asuka can't speak English because she's Japanese is bullshit. She spoke English to highlight her placing in the Women's Rumble a couple of weeks ago. So Jax, I don't know what you've been smoking, but surely you can tell that she can. It's not the best English in the world, but she can at least do it. And following on from that, Asuka was meant to have a match against some jobber, which would have increased her winning streak, but Nia Jax attacked her, which fuels the muddy water between face and heeldom that Jax's character finds itself in. She's building up for a face turn eventually, but they have to keep that going here, and that's all well and good. And I like that. And having Asuka win every single week would diminish the women's roster, so having this happen is a welcome change. And I'm looking forward to seeing their match next week, and it should be a lot of fun. We move on, though, to the main event. Jason Jordan, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns taking on the newly formed Balor Club. They never could say reformed or newly formed properly, because they couldn't tell which line to tread for the marks and many others around the world. Now, this match was a solid big man multi-person matchup with implications with good quality wrestling abound, as Jason Jordan cost the face team the match by trying to help, proving that the guy really doesn't know what to do. And it shows that, yeah, he's cocky, he's full of himself, and he's trying to do what he believes is best, despite not thinking for the others around him. This is great for Jason Jordan's character, and I cannot wait to see how Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns whoop into him come next week, because it is gonna be fun as hell, and it makes the Balor Club look scheming and very, very good in the ring, so I can't deny that's a bad thing. And then, of course, just to make the night end off on an even sweeter note, The Miz and the Miztourage attacked Roman Reigns afterwards to add even more ties into the story. This is great stuff. And it shows that Rollins, Reigns and Jordan really are right at the centre of what Raw is about right now, which is great, because the Universal Championship is kind of off to the side at the moment. I want to see what's happening with this. It's gripping me because I want to see where Jordan goes from here. A lot of you are crapping on Jordan, saying he's really bad on the mic, his character's awful, but they're building to something. And doesn't that make you excited that they're potentially going to have Jordan being kicked the crap out of by two people, one of which you may not like, but at least it's happening. This is good stuff. And overall, as you can see, Raw ended with 2 strikes. It got to the end of the night without losing one. Brilliant. 1 strike in the first hour, 1 strike in the second. I couldn't have asked for more, really. This Raw was pretty damn good. It was great, in fact. Smackdown has a lot to do to actually match this, so let's hope they can. Things kicked off on the blue side of things with a little more reserve, as with AJ Styles doing an in-ring promo with Renee Young. It's a sit-down interview in 2018. When the hell do we see this happen? Styles highlighted his fighting attitude and is willing to take on both Zayn and Owens, and yeah, he's not going to back down from putting his own foot in his mouth. However, he is unwilling to take sides on the Bryan Shane fiasco, which everybody wants to see about. Logically. And of course we have the divided authority figures showcasing themselves throughout the night, but not before Owens and Zayn stood their higher ground knowing that they have themselves an advantage. And I was thinking about the Royal Rumble matchup and thinking to myself, how the hell are they going to coexist knowing one of them has to win the championship? Well, they're going to enact the Freebird rule, much like Chyna and Chris Jericho did with the Intercontinental Championship in 1999. But of course no one on WWE television noted that that was a thing that happened in the past, which annoys me greatly. Regardless though, it ties up a little narrative problem that I really wanted to see them tackle, and it was great. On top of that, Shane highlighted that he was okay with the match happening, as long as he's able to toy with the two heels tonight by booking a massive handicap match for the main event later in the evening, which is lovely. Smackdown started off on a good in-ring promo this week because everything tied together, it made sense, and it had the tension and excitement and the electricity that you want. So I can't complain much. Fantastic. But I can complain about Becky Lynch versus Ruby Riott because, yeah, this was nothing special. I still hate Ruby Riott and the Riott Squad's theme song. Remove the punk chanting from it, amp up the tempo, make the instruments a little dirtier and grungier, then you've got a good theme song, people. See folks, I'm not telling you how to do your job, but I kind of am at the same time. The fact is, okay, Riott did some good psychology work, working the injured ribs that she put Becky Lynch out of action with, which is lovely. However, the match went at a little bit of a snail's pace, had the crowd very disinterested, and one thing that annoyed me even more is that Charlotte and Naomi, who weren't even in the match as active participants, got full entrances. Why? And okay, this match had a couple of psychological elements, and it was somewhat intriguing to see Becky Lynch back in the ring after a couple of months away. Or was it a couple of weeks away? I don't remember. The fact is, the match just didn't do anything for me. I just felt quite bloated. Didn't really have much going for it, and the result didn't do much for the Riott Squad. They're meant to be imperious and domineering, and yet they didn't come across like that at all. So this gets a strike. And seriously, they need to improve this feud between women against each other, because if they're mirroring Raw, ridiculously, to the point where I just don't know which one stands, because they're both so similar, and it's just not that great. Hopefully they can improve this in the coming weeks and make them more deadly, but knowing how the booking is quite reserved, I don't think it's going to happen that way. And we go on to a squash match between the Ascension and the Bludgeon Brothers. Now this would have gotten a strike because it's a squash match without much intrigue or venom to it, because it's so sodding predictable. At least with Curt Hawkins you can go, oh god, is he going to win this time? And it had the purpose with Matt Hardy doing his thing. It would have gotten a strike if the Ascension didn't come all guns blazing out of the gate and tried to get the upper hand. Because that made me go, okay, I'm interested now. This could be an interesting match. Oh no, wait, it's back to simple squashdom. But it saved it from a strike because it was that much different than the norm. It was impressive. And it really made me think the Ascension could start getting back into gear. Unfortunately not so, but the Bludgeon Bros still look devastating, and that's a good thing. And the Ascension looked good despite the fact they got squashed. I can't complain, I can't give that a strike for obvious reasons, so count yourself lucky, Bludgeon Bros. You could have gotten a strike for the second week in a row, but thanks to another team, that was avoided, and nothing is better than saying that. We move on to the first big match of the evening, Mojo Rawley vs Zack Ryder in the US Tournament first round match. The last one, to be exact. Now the aggression here is one you'd expect from two former teammates feuding, which is lovely, but it was of course a sole entity of making Mojo Rawley look as dominant as possible, because of course he has to face Bobby Roode in the next round, which is great. The one problem though I have to say here is once again Bobby Roode was given a full-blown entrance even though he was just sitting at ringside, while Zack Ryder, who was actually in the match, did not. And I don't understand that in any shape or form. It is stupid. It's ridiculous. It's really bad. Hoping that doesn't happen in the future, because that is not good. Give people who are in the matches entrances, damn it, because it matters. And it was a solid, one-sided match, and it kept my intrigue despite how badly Ryder was treated in it. And overall, I feel if it was done with a purpose in mind, I can't really criticise it. The match was okay. If Ryder had been legitimately squashed without much attack at all, then I would have probably given it a strike, because it's just Mojo Rawley doing what he usually does without being excited about it, and that's not much of a character shift. Make him much more deadly, then you'd be talking about something good. And we finished off the first hour with Jinder Mahal doing a backstage promo, showing his intentions in going after the US Championship. Now, he wasn't on Smackdown last week, which I already noted, but this time, unlike most of his promos for most of this year and the last year, he actually talked really well. And he dropped the xenophobic shtick, which is lovely. Now I understand he still talks with the Indian flag behind him, but at the same time, he talked well, his voice wasn't strained, he wasn't stumbling over his words, it actually came across as quite elegant, and quite, I wouldn't say intimidating, but slightly charismatic. This is what happens when you have a person speaking almost their normal voice, but add a little bit of inflection to highlight the dastardly evilness. That's what I wanted from Jinder Mahal. Why the hell wasn't this happening during his title run, which had flopped because he was obviously so one-dimensional in how he presented himself? Now this isn't the best thing I've ever seen from him, or the best thing I'm ever going to see, period. But for Jinder Mahal to keep me on tenterhooks through what he says, that's a big jump from what we had before, and I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go against Xavier Woods next time out. So, Jinder, you have my attention. Let's hope your in-ring performance can match that next time around, because if not, I may end up giving you a strike next week, and I'm not looking forward to that. The second hour begins with Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin complaining that they won the tag titles last week but were screwed by poor refereeing decisions. Now this team I keep forgetting are a heel team. They border on tweener because they're such good athletes and people love watching them, but my god, they act like whiny brats. And it showcased itself here because, oh boy, they played onto a typical cheap heat tactic of ripping into Atlanta's basketball team that won the major championship, which is short but sweet and fantastic, but the promo dragged itself out. with really, really bad schoolyard insults and dorky dialogue that followed once Daniel Bryan got in the ring. And okay, Daniel Bryan brought the intensity and announced an amazing 2 out of 3 falls match between the two teams at the Rumble, which should be great, but the dialogue and the tone of voice that Gable and Benjamin just did not suit their personality at all. And okay, I liked the generic referee number 2 insult, because it's the best one I've heard all week, but I don't know what to say about this, because Daniel Bryan made it good, and it started off really well for Gable and Benjamin, but the fact they degraded it to schoolyard insults, whining and complaining and sounding like sore freaking losers, despite the fact, as Daniel Bryan said, the referee's decision is freaking final, which means they should have won the damn belts in the first place, because that's how it goes. They make up the rules on the fly, don't they, WWE? It's bloody stupid. The fact is, this segment was so close to getting a strike. I was indifferent. I didn't want to give it a strike, because it served a great purpose with building up a new storyline for this big match and showcasing the venom that the tag division needed at the top of the card for once. And it was a tag team promo in the second hour. What? I mean, it's so difficult to tell where I have to go with this. I'm not going to give it a strike, but you may tell me otherwise that it deserves it. And speaking of potential strikedom, Styles, Orton and Nakamura doing a backstage segment to hype up their tag match. Now, this could have been pretty bad if it went on too long, but it wasn't, as it went short, sweet, to the point, as I'm now repeating, as the only buzzword I can think of that can describe how these things go. Orton did his intense threatening, which is nice. Styles joked about it, which was fantastic, and tried to end the conversation before he even could do, while Nakamura, knowing his English is not the best, just looked over, tapped the championship, saying he wants it, and that was it. He said a lot without talking much. That is Nakamura, and not to mention, captures your interest the minute he pops on screen. That's pretty solid, and I can't deny how good that was for overall, because if you think about it, they're going to build up to Styles Nakamura. A slight little nudge could be the instigation for something bigger going into WrestleMania weekend. And I cannot wait to see where that goes. All good things must come to an end, however, as Brie Zango faced off against Rusev and Aiden English, who are under the title of Rusev Day. Now, I'm going to say this right now. That as a tag name is horrible. Just keep calling them English and Rusev. You know, because it makes sense. Rusev Day is the catchphrase. Rusev Day is the phrase that makes them all the merchandising money. Don't think you can just slap that on the team and hope it runs. It's not good. And anyway, the match was alright, it was nothing special. The one thing though that makes me angry is the result. Because it basically feels like a carbon copy of what Raw did with Titus World and the Bar. And the Bar are heels. So you would expect them to have this kind of thing. The problem is, Rusev and Aiden English are over as shit. And they looked weak coming out of that. And on top of that, you then have the start of the next segment with Bryan saying, look how over with the crowd Brie Zango are. And no, they didn't get much of a cheer despite how popular their Fashion Files segment was, but you removed it from the show. Idiots. The fact is, this just did not feel original enough. It ruined the momentum the night was having, and it just didn't work because Rusev and Aiden English, okay, just like what the Bar are going through, they're going into a match at the Rumble and they wanted to look good, but then they got upset, proving anything can happen, but at the same time, it just didn't work. It's not that you can just take what Raw's doing with the women and then do the exact same thing on the other side and hope it works, because it doesn't happen like that. You do the exact same thing booking a match like this, it's not good. And I'm going to give it a strike, because yeah, what was the point of copying Raw verbatim for shocks? Because you need to start doing something more original. Don't just copy Raw. Creative team, you need to do something to make Smackdown stand out. Do it, please, because this wasn't good for anyone involved, and that isn't a good thing to say at all. We move on to that aforementioned backstage segment as the tension between Bryan and Shane is palpable. They're doing what they had to do to put you onto one side, while then dragging you out and making you realise they were trying to build up the tension that, yeah, you don't know which one of these two to side with, because they both have good points, but they also have flaws. Again, this is building up to something bigger. It's doing okay. The segment really felt quite nervy, and that's all I need on my weekly television show when you're trying to tell a narrative properly. If that tone is there, I am all sold on how this is going to play out. And then we finally reach the main event itself, with Styles, Nakamura and Orton taking on Zayn and Owens in the Handicap match. Now this was designed after 2 dubious victories under their belts to bring the heels down a peg, and boy did it manage to do so, with Sami and Kevin trying to weasel their way out of the match any way they could, before Shane, being the biased arse that he is, threw no DQ stipulations and no count-out stipulations into it, right as they tried to weasel up the aisleway twice. And the match, while it was a little all over the place and a bit disjointed, had the crowd energy, it was fun in its execution of what it tried to do, and it left Sami Zayn to eat an RKO and a vicious looking Kinshasa that I really thought had given him a concussion, which meant Raw kind of ended in a really strong note with a lot of story inter-narrative connectivity. Smackdown ended with a punch and a bang and just kind of went off air with it without us knowing what the hell happened to AJ Styles and Kevin Owens as they went to the back, because I kind of wanted to see them brawl all the way through to end the show and have a massive spot to end it. You know how usually you'd expect from this kind of thing. Maybe we see that next week. Lord knows. Overall, just like this happened, Smackdown ended with 2 strikes, not 3. Both shows ended with the same rating, which means it's going to be difficult to split the 2. But one thing I will say to anyone, this is an important PSA, do not go to a Smackdown show if you have epilepsy, because Nakamura's entrance could potentially kill you, and I want to save you the discomfort. You're probably better off from watching at home in that case. So in closing, overall, it's quite difficult to separate Raw and SmackDown this week because they fell at the same hurdle for similar problems, while also highlighting entertainment abound this week. Now, this is the one thing that annoys me, is that Raw has an extra hour where they have extra time to flesh out what's needed, and not just that, SmackDown seems to be focused on its main event and its US title tournament and very little else. Not a lot else is actually coming to the forefront and making me stand up and go, okay SmackDown, you're entertaining me from top to bottom. This week, Raw did that. They stirred all the pots of their necessary narrative cauldrons, and some of them even reached boiling point. Which is great, the Jason Jordan fiasco, the Miz inserting himself back in, you've got the Alexa Bliss, Nia Jax, Asuka thing, headlining the women up nicely, the woken Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt thing is subtly getting to where it needs to go. Raw had more going for it this week, despite the fact that both of these shows were seemingly equal in their ratings on the strike scale. So they may have lost out by the smallest amount, but SmackDown, you have a lot to do to prove to me next week that you're not going to be paling in Raw's shadow over the course of the next year, because I want to see you take a week. Give me something intense, give me something different from copying Raw verbatim every other week, because I want to see you tackle something big. Make an angle out of what happened between Kevin Owens and AJ Styles at the end of the match that we didn't even see happen. Make something big happen in the matches. Show us a shock in the title tournament. Give us something different with the women. Make something interesting, because Raw at the moment is throwing in surprises and shocks that make me want to keep going. Whilst you do the same standard formula, and even though you do it solidly and well, you need to make sure that it works. And as a result, Raw wins the second week in a row because they're doing what I want. They improved from last week and proved to be stable enough to hopefully continue it to next week. Okay, we're 2 weeks away from Raw 25, but that show could probably be as up and down as it bloody well wants to be because it's a celebratory show. Meaning that week, in a fortnight's time, 2 weeks away, SmackDown, you have an opportunity to take the bull by the horns. As for now, Raw has the upper hand, And I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes on next week's shows. And that is it. If you are enjoying this Wrestling Rant return with the analysis of the graps that happens once a week, you can click the like and the subscribe button if you want to see more. I would gladly appreciate that. But I do have to warn you all, next week's edition will be happening on a Sunday because we have the Friday flashback of SummerSlam 1992 to look forward to. And I am hoping that show does pretty well on my normal review scale for pay-per-views. There should be a lot of interest around that indeed. And hopefully the move to the Sunday won't change a lot of things. We'll find out in the long run. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people watching. This has been an edition of Wrestling Rant for the CC Network. And I will see you all next time.